It's really difficult sometimes to talk about artisanal fragrances because there is a different layer, there is a different expectation of quality and a different execution towards the way that materials are enacted within the fragrances, the way that they're used within the fragrances. It's a more fuller composition, a more combined composition, not too much of a segregated composition where you can sort of pick out notes by notes. And it's really difficult to talk about these types of fragrances and put them into a video format because each fragrance has the ability to do something to a person, to resonate a different way and create a scent memory. Jinkoh Store has been one of my favorite experiences to this day when it comes to experiencing artisanal fragrances. And I don't have necessarily the biggest collection of different houses of artisanal fragrances, but from the ones that I've tried, such as Ensar Oud, such as Orige Le Doré, such as Jinx Smells, I'm really, really loving my time with Jinko Store, and I encourage a lot of people to enjoy this house, to experience this house, and see what it does for them. Now, not too many of the artisanal houses or brands venture off into creating a niche type of fragrance. And what I love about this series is we're going to explore the niche side of it first and then transition into the sunset line, which is the true artisanal space, and then also some of the oils which I have in my collection. So episode 2 will focus on 3, maybe 4. We'll talk about 4 fragrances from the niche collection, and I guess when we get back, I'll explain what's happening with the channel and we'll jump straight into the video. So let's play that music for the last time and I'll showcase the next 4. Thank you guys again for joining me. So I did say the last time because we're doing a little bit of a rebranding on the channel. I'm not going to get too much into the details, but we are now the Fragrant Lounge. I wanted to be the Fragrance Lounge, but it seems like somebody else is doing it and probably not doing it too well. Nah, that's just me being envious, but we are the Fragrant Lounge and I welcome you in. We are going to be talking about Jinkoh Store and touching upon part 2 of the niche collection, which is the last 4 that I have in my collection. I'm just missing one, which is Gentleman Noir, but it is what it is. So we'll jump into that. Please make sure you guys subscribe, like, comment, share below what artisanal houses you've been messing with as of late, because I'd love to kind of explore some. And I'll kind of leave the question down to you guys because I kind of want to see, is folk winds really that good? What's your experience with them? Where would you rank them within the artisanal space? And are there any that you would recommend for me to try out? Cool. We'll leave that thought there. Please drop your comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. But without further ado, let's jump into the first fragrance of the video. Now, the first fragrance that I'd like to touch upon is Incense Noir. You know, when I first got this, this was sort of attained at the same time as Oud Rose Noir, and both I had reservations with. One, Oud Rose Noir, as you saw in the first video. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you guys check it out. I had my reservations because Oud Rose, the category is overdone. It is what it is. One of my favorite fragrances ever, period. One of the best launches I've ever smelled. One of the best newer fragrances that I've ever smelled. I'm in love with it. Incense Noir kind of felt the same way. I'm not necessarily too much of a fan of incense, frankincense. This, that sort of smoky, bogged down, heavy type of feeling that some of these accords bring. But then when you give this a true wearing and a full wearing, and I usually say try not to overspray too much with these fragrances because they are a little bit heavier and a little bit more, resinous and a little bit more thicker and room fillers. I found understanding Incense Noir like a true regular wearing, like a niche collection wearing, 5 sprays, even though it's a little bit much at the start, is a great way to experience this fragrance. And as I did have my reservations with incense and frankincense, especially with Doha coming out, Salale coming out, from the Sunset line from Jinkoh Store, I was like, damn, it's like, it kind of feels like it's being played out. But the genius behind Marius is him utilizing some of these notes and really bending and twisting the fragrance a different avenue than what your expectation may be. So what I personally love about Incense Noir is there's this bitterness, there's this unweighted type of feeling when you spray this fragrance. It really comes out with the spices, and the spices feel sort of mild but yet rich in a sense that you're extracting the best way of, like, you're extracting the best flavor of the spices. Like, for example, when you're a cook and you kind of warm up your spices first, you'll notice from the raw spices to the more warmed up spices where it's a little bit more fragrant, there's a little bit more quality, a little bit more tightness to that composition of spices. This is how Incense Noir feels. It feels very, very, very high quality, especially when you bring it close to your nose and you're smelling everything. The way that this whole concoction of a fragrance sits is really mind-boggling. And I'm not necessarily going to say and pin it as my favorite fragrance from the Noir line, but the quality and respect that I have for this fragrance, it's up there. And the reason why I say that is sitting down with it and really kind of dissecting and smelling it, you get this wonderful barkiness of the cinnamon that kind of comes out, beautiful peppers that kind of come out, but it's still mellow. If I'm not mistaken, there's a blue lotus, not a blue, sorry, a lotus accord or a floral accord in there that doesn't feel like a floral because the spiciness of that floral goes so well with the spices that are intertwined with the rest of the notes. Then you have this beautiful out of the box vanilla that doesn't give it that vanillic accord that you'd be used to. There's still a touch of that sweetness that is there, but truly a beautifully light, dark incense. So it's light, it's airy, it's not bogged down, but it still has a little bit of that darkness in the incense that captivates the spirit and captivates the mind. I think this is a truly wonderful fragrance. I do have a full wearing on me right now because I really wanted to experience it again, just so I can articulate what I'm feeling to you. Because the other two, or other three that I'll talk about are much easier to explain. This one's a little bit more complicated. And without understanding the type of bitterness, the type of woodiness, the type of that clean incense that's coming out of here that doesn't necessarily feel too smoky, but it still feels sort of charcoal in a sense. If you open a bag of charcoal and that kind of scent that kind of comes out of the bag, that's kind of what you're looking at in terms of crispness with the incense. And I'm not saying that it smells like a barbecue, not at all. There's still that sacredness to this fragrance, but the way that everything is kind of set, there's nothing that overpowers each other, and the composition and the way that everything blends is truly magnificent. I have high regards for Incense Noir, and the more that I sit with it, the more that I'm truly understanding it, and it really brings something new to the collection that I just don't have. It feels like I could replace a lot of the woodier fragrances in my collection, especially if I'm looking for something a little bit more drier, right? It doesn't feel like it's wet. It doesn't feel like it's overly sweet. It doesn't feel like there's so much going on, but it has that dryness to it, which could simulate a little bit of that clean, woody aspect that I could just get rid of a whole bunch of other stuff and just kind of rock with this because it's kind of emulates that plus the incense that is captivated in this bottle. I think, you know, I won't go out and say blind buy this. I truly think this is not a blind buy safe fragrance, but it's definitely something worth checking out. But as you check it out, try to understand it. Understand what it's trying to do, what it's trying to accomplish, and what the notes bring at each tier and each level. Really, really fun stuff. Fun stuff. So that's my take on Incense Noir. You should get your nose on a sample if you can. Truly, truly like this. And it's very nice and unique, especially that it doesn't go the heavy route that a lot of incense and frankincense fragrances go. So that's my take on Incense Noir. See what you think and let me know down below. Cool. We'll jump to the next one. Now, for the second fragrance that I'd love to talk to you guys about, this one is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. There was an edition that came out before, but I haven't smelt it before, so I can't necessarily talk about it. But given that I have this, Apurikito Noir, we'll be talking about this one. Beautiful, 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 beautiful fragrance. The most easiest way to identify or talk about this fragrance is how it feels like such a beautiful summer fragrance. There is oud in here, but it doesn't feel like the oud you would recognize. It doesn't feel like an oudy fragrance. The main star of the show, in my honest opinion, is apricot and ambergris. Sandalwood as well, but that comes a little bit later in the dry down or to kind of make the fragrance feel so much lighter and so much more, you know, with a little bit more backbone. I love this fragrance. I think this fragrance is delectable. There's a fluttering composition at the opening with that beautiful apricot note. Bergamot obviously is in there, chilling. You got some woody aspects in there, but the crispness of this fragrance and the happiness of this fragrance is really, really, really there from the start. And a lot of people will say, I miss the longevity aspect of that apricot kind of staying there and being there throughout the whole fragrance. But I do want to exercise and say that the ambergris is such a welcome addition, and especially when you have it glistening off your skin, the way that this ambergris plays, it's just divine. There's that sea salty-esque type of accord that's very subtle, but the apricot and the opening just really is that temptation that makes you say this is mouth-wateringly freshly good. There's no density to this fragrance. I think the way that this fragrance opens up is just absolutely wonderful, perfect for a spring, summer, fall type of wearing. You could technically wear it whenever you want, but in my honest opinion, I think this is a little bit more built for summer days. Out of the entire collection, I think this and Patchouli Noir are both signature scent worthies, so you could definitely crush a full bottle of Apurikito Noir. It's just absolutely, absolutely friendly, wonderful stuff. Very happy fragrance, very bright, very uplifting fragrance, and that realistic apricot note, stunning, stunning, stunning. It's very, very, very nice and airy. And to me, what I really enjoy about this fragrance is just that dry down. That dry down of the woody aspects of the sandalwood, the ambergris just kind of chilling, very nice and light off of the skin. It still feels like you're wearing something, but it doesn't necessarily feel like the fragrance has faded away, although, you know, that delicious apricot kind of goes away after some time. So I really like this. I wish I could experience the original, but that is long gone, and this exists, and I still think it's formidable. It's something that, if you're into a little bit more of a summer wearing, something that you'd look for a signature scent with high quality materials, I do think Apurikito Noir would be something worth checking out. Always sample first because you just kind of want to see how it balances with your skin chem, but yeah, just a truly, truly wonderful thing. Very simplistic in its nature. As the scent kind of comes off of you, it doesn't have, again, that density, but just wonderful. So give it a try if you can, if they are all available. So see how it sits on your skin and let everybody know your thoughts. But highly recommend it. And we'll move to the next one. So the next fragrance that I'd like to talk to you about is one that I don't have in my possession at the moment. I used to have a 50 ml, but then I decided to make a effort to kind of make things match a little bit. So I ended up getting the new presentation of 65 ml, which is in the mail right now. So it is coming. But I do have extensive knowledge with Patchouli Noir, which is the next one that we'll be talking about. And I'd like to kind of discuss this because I wanted to jump to the next one with the bottle that I have, but I figured out of the three, I think these first three that we've talked about, which is Incense Noir, Apurikito Noir, and Patchouli Noir, have such a nice wearability to it in the sense of you can make any of these three a signature scent. I think Patchouli Noir and Apurikito Noir more so than Incense Noir, but I like Patchouli Noir quite a bit. It's still a very difficult one to kind of put my mind and wrap my mind around. And the reason why I say that is there's a lot of notes that you're going to read throughout that composition that make it sound intriguing, especially on a, ideology of what niche fragrances bring. But the way that the composition is so well rounded out and so effortless, it's hard to tell individually where the notes kind of reside at. I struggle with it. I'm going to be real with you. The wearability of the fragrance is something that I don't struggle with. I think it's masterful. I think it's clean. I think it's very, very easy to wear. I don't necessarily get too much of a patchouli note. I don't necessarily get too much of a truffle note. I don't necessarily get too much of a citrus note at all. The fragrance just feels beautifully well rounded and almost unidentifiable, but it's near perfection to wear. It's kind of confusing when you think about it, but a lot of people that I've shown Patchouli Noir to has been like, Madar, I need you to get me a bottle. I need this in my collection. It's one of those fragrances that I think a lot of people feel friendly to. And again, it's one of those where, again, if you read through the note breakdown, you'd be expecting some sort of cherry because a lot of niche fragrances, such as Bodicia's Bodacious, has that pungent, boozy cherry. But it's not like a cherry like that. Hedonistic has a cherry from Clive Christian, but it's not a cherry like that. Which other one? Tom Ford. I'm not even gonna go Tom Ford. That's juvenile to me. But when you think about it, none of these have that exertion on the fragrance that stands out and makes you say, okay, I identify. Like, I couldn't even identify the truffles, and I love a beautiful truffle note in a fragrance. And that's coming from, my experience with Kriegler's Hermitage Heritage, or even Tom Ford's Black Orchid, which I love a lot. But there's nothing like that kind of stands out in Patchouli Noir. The composition is just, it feels great. It feels like one. So I think if you're a fan of patchouli fragrances, if you're scared or you're worried and you're like, damn, is this going to lean like Patchouli Magnétique from Maison Crivelli? It's not. Is it going to lean like Lovely Patchouli from Kriegler? It's not. What other patchouli fragrances is going to be like a tuxedo from YSL? It's not, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's in the same vibe or same realm as a tuxedo by YSL, but that lightness, that airiness to it, the execution of the scent where it doesn't have too much sweetness, is where Patchouli Noir kind of differentiates itself. Um, and I know it may sound like blasphemy for me to say that, but the way that Patchouli Noir is done is very unique and one of a kind that makes people who smell it kind of say, yeah, we gotta get this, especially if you're a patchouli lover. So, um, if there's one out of everything that I'd be kind of safe to say is a blind buy, which I still don't encourage, I think Patchouli Noir might be one of those that are worthy of a blind buy. So, um, that's all I'll kind of say about Patchouli Noir. But easily, I think one of the better ones from the niche collection that is worthy of getting your nose on. So, sorry I didn't have the bottle to kind of, do the whole slow mo and all that stuff. But we'll move on to our last one. The last fragrance we're going to touch upon with the niche section of Jinkoh Store is Amber Noir. Look at the color of that juice, guys. It's phenomenal. Now, amber fragrances to me are hit and miss. Some come off very medicinal, some come off very sweet, very cloying. Amber Noir is very well done. It could have been put in the other video as well because I tried to feature a lot of the fragrances that were a little bit heavier in the first video. This one is a room filler. This one you'll probably need a very smallish type of wearing, such as a 3 sprays max. See how it kind of feels for you, but it's really, really strong. Barky, kind of has a little bit of an inkiness to it. There's dried fruit in here. And that dried fruit feels very nice and realistic. The sweetness is very tame, but it's nice. It's airy in the sense that there's not too much of a density, a heaviness to this fragrance. I think the amber side of things is so well done. It feels very nice. It feels very mature. It feels very well put together, like you know what you're doing. The spices are fantastic. I think, if you're in the realm of looking for almost an end game amber fragrance, I think this one is up there, especially if you like that artisanal side of amber. It doesn't feel like something that'll weigh you down. It doesn't feel like something that you can get sick of, right? Something that you'll just kind of say, leave it to the side. Maybe I'll choose something else. I think out of all the amber fragrances that I have, this might be the best one. And I'm just kind of mentally going through what I have. And yeah, I just love the way that this wears. This feels, again, like it has a bit of that barkiness to it. So it has a lot of depth, a lot of spices. But again, it feels dark. It doesn't feel heavy, but it feels dark. And it's something that I could see myself wearing. I love these new presentations though, because again, like when you're like I'll spray it over here, it hoses you down, right? Pause, I guess. My goodness, wow. Wow. Yeah. It has like a mystique to it. It has like a sensuality to it. It's so well put together. I'd recommend this. This one is definitely worth getting your nose on. Um, this was another one that I upgraded from the older style to the newer style, so that's why there's not too much of a dent in it. But just tremendous, tremendous work from Marius. Um, this niche line is just crazy, in my honest opinion. I think when you sit through, I don't necessarily expect everybody to have everything. I mean, if you do, great for you. But if you were to choose a couple from here, your fragrance wardrobe would be highly upgraded. If we could recap everything, to me, if I were to only be able to choose, I don't know, four, let's say four, the four that I'd go with hands down: Oud Noir. Marius, please send me one in 65 ml, please. Oud Noir, hands down. Oud Rose Noir, hands down. Now the rest comes to personal preference. Um, I'd have to go Tobacco Noir. The tobacco in it is very unique, very different. And the fourth one, it would kill me to kind of like axe any of them out, but I'm going with Apurikito. Apurikito. I hope I'm saying it right. Apurikito Noir. Just that apricot and ambergris is just phenomenal. Those would be my top four that I'd personally like. If I was to only choose four, those are the four that I'd go with. But again, like Amber Noir is fantastic. The dates, the dried fruits. There's sort of again like a dark inkiness to the fragrance where the amber doesn't feel like overly crazy, but it's still there and it's truly an amber, truly a nice airy amber. Mm. Anyways, Amber Noir would be absolutely a top pick for a lot of other people. I think Patchouli Noir would be a top pick for a lot of people. So you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with this lineup. Um, to conclude, because that's it for the niche line, right? We're gonna now jump into, I think, the oils next. But to conclude, this niche line, in my honest opinion, will make you think differently about some of the fragrance releases that are out there. And again, I hate to go back and kind of feel spiteful or whatever, negative, whatever you guys want to call it. But a lot of the fragrances that are being pushed on TikTok and saying this is the best thing I've ever smelled, and all the quality claims there, these types of fragrances, especially the niche line, start making you think otherwise. Start making you say, you know what? I'm going to save my pockets on those types of fragrances and really look to, capitalize on some of these and really appreciate the quality and appreciate what it brings to your collection. So I hope you guys really, really give it a chance. Get your nose on a couple of samples, before you ask. A lot of the fragrance groups on Facebook, such as maybe some of the Oud and Artisanal fragrance groups, Jinkoh Store's fragrance group, they'll have people there that sell samples. So you're more than welcome to kind of reach out, put out a post, and see if that kind of satisfies your need to try things out. But I highly recommend getting your nose on it and really start diving into the artisanal space, especially with, top houses like Jinkoh Store. So you guys now tuned into the brand new Fragrant Lounge, and I really hope you enjoyed your stay. If you guys want to hear the reasoning behind why I changed it to the Fragrant Lounge, just stay back for a quick sec. If not, well, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share the video, and comment down below about folk wins, because I do want to hear about them. Cool? Much love. Peace out. Bye. All right. So we changed to the Fragrant Lounge. The reason being is I had food and fragrances as my channel name. Food and fragrances was a premature thought. At that time, I was catering, which I still do here and there. And I used to do a little bit of food content and things like that. And the initial goal was to marry food and fragrances together. And what that marriage would have looked like is kind of, bringing some people that I know from Facebook groups, like friends, people that I've interacted with, that I've built a relationship with, maybe family members, maybe even, hopefully, I don't know, people who have ties within the fragrance community over and cook a meal for them. And while cooking a meal, try to do some fragrance pairings and kind of unlock their fragrance journey and their story. That was the end goal for food and fragrances. But realistically, I think you know, with starting a new life in a sense of, you know, getting married, which is amazing. You know, spending family time because, you know, parents are getting older, um, you know, with work and things like that. There's not too much capacity to kind of go that route. So, and by capacity, what I mean is the hours in a day. Because not only am I a singular person filming, as you can see, everything kind of feels still like it could be better. But I do the filming myself, I do the organization myself, I do the, you know, the buying, the purchasing, the testing, and all that stuff myself, the editing myself, posting, you know, thumbnails and all that stuff. I think if we had a food component, not only would the videos get far and few between, um, I think, you know, the time commitment for you know, kind of where we're at in the channel, just I don't think would be beneficial for my health. You know, obviously the attention that I need on other things in life, such as, you know, my wife, my parents, you know, my work. Those, you know, are very high quality to me. So I think, or not high quality, but priority for me, and high quality, I guess. But yeah, I just think it took time to make that decision, but we changed it where we're keeping it more focused on the fragrant lounge. And I think in the event, if I ever do branch off into, you know, those one-off episodes where I do incorporate some of the food stuff, then it makes it a little bit easier. And we can just label that as a segment as opposed to the entire channel's branding. So that's the reason why we changed it to the Fragrant Lounge. And I hope you guys are okay with that. If not, well, too bad. It's already changed. Anyways, much love. Thank you guys for sticking out through. And I really, really hope we can build this year. I really, really want this to take off and, you know, see where it goes. But love you guys and thank you all for the support. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out. Bye.